Hello and welcome. I'm Adesope Olaji, and this is Vox Africa UK's mental health special on Every Mind Matters campaign.
Everyone knows that feeling when life gets on top of us. We feel stressed, low, anxious, or have trouble sleeping. You may think there's nothing we can do about it. But now there's a new way to help turn things around. Every Mind Matters will show you simple ways to look after your mental health. It'll get you started with a free online plan designed to help you deal with stress, boost your mood, improve your sleep, and feel more in control.
Welcome back to the studio. Joining me to discuss today's topics are Richard, an actor and mental health awareness campaigner, and obviously Vanessa Boakye, who also is a psychological therapist and mental health awareness campaigner. Thank you very much for joining me in the studio. I'd like to go to you, Vanessa, first.
Sure.
You founded an organization called Inside Out. Tell me a little bit about that organization.
Sure. So Inside Out is a social enterprise which is focused on providing mental health education for young people, and the primary audience is the Afro-Caribbean community. So young people and young adults, and the whole essence of that is to focus on prevention and early interventions. So we do monthly workshops, and we also do biannual creative events to teach people about mental health and teach people about ways to optimize their well-being.
Well, speaking about mental health and optimizing their well-being, Richard, I introduced you as somebody that pretty much advocates for mental health awareness. You sadly lost your mother at the age of 18, which led into you spiraling into having some depression. Talk to me about how that felt. You know, what led to you really battling with some mental health illness?
I mean, at the time it was just terrible. And obviously, when you lose a loved one, you kind of find yourself in a dark hole. So I find myself having to pull myself out without the tools of what is actually happening today in terms of Every Mind Matters.
Yes.
I mean, it's good that the tools are out there for everyone now, but in terms of back then, I had to do everything myself. So I'm just here to try and advocate for mental health and show people that you can come out of a dark hole. You don't have to suffer on your own. And now there's tools for you to help, and you don't have to have mental health, just to make sure your mental health is in check. So.
Every Mind Matters. This is the campaign that we're all talking about now. In as simple terms as you can, what is Every Mind Matters?
Okay, so it's a campaign which is run by Public Health England and NHS, and the whole purpose of the campaign is to give people the tools to look after their well-being. So it's more based on those simple things that everyone can do on a day-to-day basis to look after themselves. So they have a mind plan, which all you have to do is complete 5 questions. And
Which I completed as well.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? And with those 5 questions, it formulates a plan for you. And with that plan, you can start implementing those things. So that might be to increase the level of exercise you're doing, or to, do some thought techniques, maybe thought challenging, reconsidering your thoughts. It might be sleep, that might be a difficulty. So it has various different tips that, people can use on a day-to-day basis as the first point of contact anyway.
How easily accessible are these tools?
Very, very easily accessible. As I mentioned, they're quite simple.
Yeah.
And, all you have to do is log onto the website. So it's www.everymindmatters.co.uk. Go onto the website. There's information that is simplified. So it's not complex. It's in bite-sized, very user-friendly. It's helpful no matter, what stage you're at. As you mentioned, you don't have to have a mental health condition to be able to use these, tools and techniques. It's more of, looking after your overall well-being.
Now, speaking about Inside Out, you spoke about the Afro-Caribbean and the African and Caribbean communities, raising awareness in that. Mental health awareness, or the conversation around mental health within this communities have been a very difficult topic. And how does Every Mind Matters, how does this organization and this platform, how do we intend to raise the awareness within these communities?
I guess it's an initial starting point. So it's all about having that conversation and being able to point people in the right direction with looking at, some of those tools that they can use themselves. So there may be people who may not necessarily have had that conversation because of the stigma that's attached to mental health within our community. So, if there's people out there who may not feel comfortable to speak to someone directly, there's this online platform that you can use to have a look at, just as the first point of call anyway, to understand a bit more about yourself, understand a bit more about what you can do. And I think that itself is particularly helpful within, our community itself, with people who don't want to talk about it. So, going online as the first point of contact before, perhaps seeking professional help if necessary.
Now, one of the other aspects within the African and Black Caribbean communities that's been hugely influential is parts like churches, organizations like that. First of all, Richard, did you see any of this type of established organizations as any part to assist you when you were going through whatever it is that you were going through? That's number one question. The other thing would be, what do you think those type of organizations can do to empower or encourage organizations or beautiful platforms like Every Mind Matters?
Okay, so first of all, my mum was a strong believer in the church, so I didn't have a choice but to pray and turn to God and stuff like that. But I can't honestly say that the church was there for me, because I weren't in a position to go to the church again. As I said, I was in a dark hole, in a very, very dark place. I will say that obviously churches are there to, help people see the light and see that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Whether or not the churches actually believe that, we can suffer mental health and then bring those bring those traumas to the church is another thing. I do believe now there's more of a conversation going on in terms of mental health, which is good, but there needs to be much more done in terms, especially within the BME community. So it's just about keeping positive and trying to get yourself out there and do as much as you possibly can. And this is where I feel we are now.
This question will be to either of you. What are the examples that people can, whatever signs that they see that could probably start to point them towards the direction that they're not living healthily enough, or they need to start addressing certain parts of their lifestyle, whether it's sleep deprivation, or what examples or signs should people be looking at?
I would say when things start to interfere with your everyday life, that's when it becomes cause for concern. So, for instance, you use the example of sleep deprivation. If that itself is something that is potentially stopping you from getting to work or being on time for work, that there's a cause for concern because it's having an impact on your everyday life. Another example would be something such as low mood. Low mood is something that we all experience from time to time, and it's completely healthy to experience low mood as a response to challenging life situations that have happened. However, where it becomes problematic is, again, where it starts to interfere with your day-to-day life. So is it affecting your ability to study? Is it affecting your ability to go to work? Is it affecting your ability to have relationships with people? So it will all be different for everyone in terms of, looking at when to seek help, but the initial sign is where it becomes an interference with your day-to-day life and you're not behaving in the way that you normally would do. So things that go against how you normally will behave, that would possibly be a cause for concern. And sometimes it takes maybe friends or family to actually notice these things as well. But even just that general self-awareness, I think I encourage everybody to try and gain some self-awareness, understand how am I feeling, what's going on with me, is there a difference between what happened at the beginning of the week, is there a difference between how I'm feeling at the end of the week, and just assess
close monitoring
monitoring your feelings the same way that we would monitor our physical health. the same way we need to monitor our mind as well.
The conversation has been that mental health obviously is just as important as physical health. You mentioned going into the gym. We talked about sleep deprivation. What are the signs that you see that make you feel that perhaps it's not been the usual Richard in the last couple of days or whatever?
I'd say depending on the day, depending on how I feel. There's times where I just know I have to meditate because I need to clear my mind, and if I don't, obviously things can go from bad to worse. There's always something you can do. It's just whether or not have you got the strength to get there. Like for example, most people don't want to go to the gym, but once you get to the gym, you start working. It's that step between getting up and just getting to the gym. But so sometimes I just try to meditate and do as much as I can and just focus on positive thoughts. Literally.
As a psychological therapist, what are the conversations that you have with clients, especially people from the Afro-Caribbean, the Black and ethnic minority, group? What are the type of conversations? What are the difficulties in letting people seek support? Because coming from the communities that we're from, a discussion about mental health is as difficult as it can be. Now, what are the stumbling blocks that you have seen to be a reoccurring factor with clients speaking to you saying, perhaps this is the reason why I haven't really raised my hand to seek for advice or assistance?
Yeah, oh gosh, there's so many reasons. And I guess one of the first things that comes to mind from my experience anyway is, the relationship that people do have with professionals. So, if you go into the therapy room and, the therapist may not necessarily have that background information about yourself, about your culture, that itself can be a stumbling block for an individual, because it becomes a thing where rather than the therapist, helping the client, it's more of the client explaining themselves and explaining their culture, and that itself is quite draining, especially in a therapeutic setting. So where there isn't that information about, cultural backgrounds, about what this person is actually going through, that's where they can be conflict. So just to give you a typical example, something such as, discipline within our culture itself, that of course raises a lot of alarm bells, where some people might use, various means to discipline their children.
Yes.
But when you go into, a European sort of setting and we talk about something like that, automatically it's like a safeguarding issue because of something like that. But whereas when you have that background of, it might not have been abuse, but it was more of discipline, then you're able to sort of understand that person a bit more and put yourself in their shoes. That's just one example. There's probably plenty more examples as well, but definitely the interactions that people do have with therapists. So when I do have people from Black backgrounds or Afro-Caribbean backgrounds who come into therapy with me, sometimes it's the first time they've actually seen a Black therapist. So it's like, oh wow, you're a Black therapist. This is someone that I can actually relate to and identify with, someone who may understand the cultural background as well. So I think that itself can be a big stumbling block, along with stigma as well. And we've spoken about church. I think there's this perception that you can't do both, but you can pray and you can
seek
also
advice and seek help.
You can do both at the same time. I think there's that conception that we need to do one or the other, or if you're doing the therapy, you don't believe in God. I don't believe in that. I think doing, we're holistic beings, so doing different things with different approaches, I think that's very helpful.
Okay, well, we'll be taking a short break right now, and in a couple of minutes we'll be right back with my guests, Vanessa and Richard, talking a lot more about Every Mind Matters. Keep it right here on Vox Africa.
Everyone knows that feeling when life gets on top of us. We feel stressed, low, anxious, or have trouble sleeping. You may think there's nothing we can do about it. But now there's a new way to help turn things around. Every Mind Matters will show you simple ways to look after your mental health. It'll get you started with a free online plan designed to help you deal with stress, boost your mood, improve your sleep, and feel more in control.